All things Mavs.
And they'll reset. Nowitzki again for the lead. Bang!
What's up, Mavs fans? Welcome into the All Things Mavs podcast, and we officially have basketball scheduled and ready to be played at the end of July. NBA just released the schedule, so I kind of want to break down what the Mavs are going to be doing, who they're going to be playing, and what's going to be going on, and how those matchups are going to look. So let's just jump right into it because I'm excited. I'm excited to talk to you guys about it at the end of the podcast. I kind of want to interact with you guys by just hearing your thoughts, just so in the comment section or in the review of the podcast, whatever it may be, whether you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcast or Breaker or Google Podcast, wherever you may be listening, I want you to respond and tell me what you think the Mavs record is going to be in these final games that they're going to be played again at the end of July. First game will be July 31st. Now, the NBA has decided to start playing on July 30th. Mavs didn't get a game on that opening day, so we're going to be looking at who they will be opening up with. And of course, it's the Houston Rockets, the arch rivals, James Harden, Russell Westbrook. Listen, don't like the Rockets, have never liked the Rockets, will never like the Rockets. So I'm excited for that game. We get to open it up and just want to kind of go matchup by matchup and see what the Mavs have done in their time against Houston, because they played them twice already this year. And of course, that first game was that weird afternoon game, November 24th, when the Mavs actually beat Houston 137-123. And that's when Tim Hardaway Jr. and Luka Doncic both had absolutely monster games. KP had a double-double. Tim Hardaway put up 31 points. Luka put up 41 and 10, not to mention his 6 rebounds that game. Porzingis, on the other hand, 23 points and 13 boards. Nobody could keep him off. And Dorian Finney-Smith had a double-double too, 12 and 10 that night, or I guess that afternoon in Houston. Was that in Houston? Yeah, it was, the Toyota Center. If you've ever been there, by the way, the American Airlines Center blows it out of the water. I went to a game there this past Christmas break. Not worth really going to. Anyway, Rockets, on the other hand, this is when they still had Clint Capella. So Capella wasn't injured. This was before they traded him to Atlanta, which I personally forgot about for a little bit. But, I mean, Houston, their starting 5 had a great game. Harden, 32 points. Westbrook, 27. Capella, 21. Daniel House and PJ Tucker both put up 16 that night. But the Mavs pulled it out. They won, double-digit victory. That was early on. Mavs fans were riding high off that one. And then the second game, Mavs and Houston go up against each other once again in Houston, and Dallas falls. But this was a game without Luka Doncic. And this was actually a monster game from KP where he had 35 and 12, one of those amazing stretches that he went on, but it just wasn't enough. Ryan Brokoff started that game. Hey, by the way, shout out to Rowdy B for living it up now in Philadelphia. I know we're all cheering for him. I'm excited for that. Excited to watch him hit some threes, and, you know, he doesn't have to block Ben Simmons anymore. But anyway, KP had a massive game that night, but Mavs couldn't pull out the victory because it was Harden and Westbrook just carried the load. 35 from Harden, 32 from Russell Westbrook. And I think this game is more indicative of how the Rockets are going to play when we get back to the bubble, because that starting 5 was Eric Gordon, PJ Tucker, James Harden, Daniel House, and Russell Westbrook. Now, of course, Robert Covington will take the place of Daniel House in that starting 5, but they'll still roll with all these guys because they don't have a true big man anymore. And here's the deal. I'll say it. If Luka Doncic was playing this game, the Mavs would have won, because Porzingis was huge, but nobody else could score that night. I mean, you get 15 from Hardaway on 5 of 12 shooting. You get 16 from Seth off the bench. But really, nobody else could do anything. Nobody else could be making plays, and it was all KP. And luckily, the Rockets now, their tallest player in their team is Tyson Chandler, who's 7 feet tall. Their next tallest player is Bruno Caboclo, who's 6'9", and he's not going to be getting minutes in crunch time games like this one. So, you know, I'm going to be honest. I think the Mavs, assuming everybody's playing in this game, have a really good shot at winning this one. Now, we haven't seen them since they got Robert Covington. I would definitely want to mention that because Covington's a great player. I know a lot of Mavs fans wanted him to be a Dallas Maverick around the deadline, but, you know, here we are. We'll see Covington in the starting 5. I think PJ Tucker will get the assignment on Kristaps Porzingis. I'd probably say Covington guards Luka, and then we got to figure out a way to stop the duo of Westbrook and Harden, but we played Harden pretty well. I mean, he scored a ton every time we played him, but we double-teamed him, didn't allow him to step back. I like DeLon Wright guarding him. I like a Dorian Finney-Smith guarding him. Maybe stick DeLon on Russell Westbrook, whatever it may be. But that's going to be a fun game. 8 o'clock, nationally televised, July 31st. Keep it tuned here on the All Things Mavs channel and on the podcast as well. We'll be talking about it all the time. So Next game, August 2nd, so they have a couple days off. They'll play against the Phoenix Suns at 8 o'clock on August 2nd. And, of course, these times are all Central Time if you're listening somewhere else, all based in Texas. Phoenix and Dallas have played twice this year, and the Mavs are 1-1 in those games, so they have split them. And they'll actually play Phoenix twice in the bubble, which is going to be really, really interesting. Now, the first matchup they had was early on in the season, November 29th, so just after the Mavs beat up on the Rockets in Houston. And everyone played that night. It was Luka, Tim Hardaway, KP, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Dwight Powell in the starting five. Luka and THJ, again, humongous games. Porzingis played like absolute crap. Had 2 points, 13 boards. Rebounding great and 3 block shots, that's great. But offensively, wasn't doing much. At least he was a +4, I guess, in the box score, so that's not bad. But Luke, on the other hand, 42 points, 11 assists, and 9 boards. Tim Hardaway put up 26 points. So, again, doing what Tim does, went 6 of 9 from 3. Meanwhile, Phoenix Suns, on the other hand, 21 points from Ricky Rubio, 22 points from Kelly Oubre. And that brings me to my next point here. Kelly Oubre is not going to be playing. I believe he tore his meniscus before the end of the season, so he's going to be out for Phoenix. So the Mavs won't have to worry about him. That's one less scorer on the Phoenix Suns. And I'd expect probably Mikal Bridges probably to step into that starting lineup now. Maybe a Cam Johnson out of North Carolina, the rookie. But Phoenix is going to be playing for something. Now, before I get into what they're playing for, the Mavs did play them a second time, and the Mavs lost that game. That was one of the ugliest games of the year for the Dallas Mavericks. That was on January. It was back in late January. DeAndre Ayton absolutely dominated Dallas. I mean, Porzingis couldn't do anything. Obviously, there was no Dwight Powell that night, but Porzingis was rendered useless against the former number 1 overall pick. KP had 9 points, no block shots, 3 rebounds in 20 minutes of play. Meanwhile, DeAndre Ayton comes in, and he puts up 31 points and 9 rebounds. So that's a matchup. And then, of course, Devin Booker had a big game too, 32 points. But that's a matchup that we'll watch for, is Ayton versus Porzingis. I think Porzingis is going to be just fine. But, he's going to have to play a lot better if the Mavs want to win this one. It's going to be important that they win this one because it's the second game. But here's the deal. Phoenix is 6 games out of the 8th seed. So mathematically speaking, they could be completely out of the playoffs by, I think, the second time they play them, which would be August 13th. That is actually TBD on the time that they're going to play. We don't know yet when they're actually going to play that game, which is fine because they're all playing in the same place, so they can play whenever they want. But Phoenix could be completely out of the playoffs by that last game and could just say, hey, we don't want to stick Devin Booker out there, DeAndre Ayton, we don't want to risk injury. We're going to play all of our young guys and just not worry about it. So really, the Mavs could be sitting pretty when they play Phoenix. Now, the second game, the first time they play them, it's going to be important because Phoenix will be playing for something. They will be fighting for the 8th seed in the Western Conference and hopefully for them try to get into the play-in tournament, I guess, against the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, so that's Phoenix. I'm not going to talk about them again because we do play them twice. Mavs have always had problems with the Suns, which I've just never understood. It doesn't matter if it's Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire, or if it's Devin Booker, Ricky Rubio, and DeAndre Ayton, or if it's even worse team than that. The Mavs have just always had trouble with Phoenix. So hopefully they don't. It's going to be helpful that Kelly Oubre is out for the Suns. I'd love to play a team at their full strength, obviously, to get us ready for the playoffs, but I'm not going to complain with a better chance at a W. Next game, 2 days later, they're going to have a little bit of time off. It's going to be an afternoon game, so some of y'all will be sitting in work. August 4th, I don't even know what day that is. Let's pull up the calendar and check real quick. You go to August 4th, that's going to be a Tuesday afternoon. So we go to Tuesday, you're sitting at work, you're going to be streaming this game against the Sacramento Kings. Now, the Mavs and Kings have already played 3 times this year, so I want to go game by game and break those down. First game of the year, early December 8th, Mavs lose to the Kings, and I was a little bit worried because, Kings they're the Kings. It's just like, okay, they're just there. Like, I don't expect them to even really be fighting for anything. Look, I know a lot of people are counting them out already in the playoffs. I'm one of those people. I don't think they really have a good shot at the 8th seed. They are not sitting real pretty in the Western Conference standings. They're kind of on the same path as the Phoenix Suns. But that first game, Nemanja Bjelica came in and just dominated. That was also the time, I think right after Bjelica went and scored 30 on us, he went and hit a game winner over the Houston Rockets the night after in a back-to-back when they were playing the Texas Triangle. Mavs, on the other hand, had Luka at 27 points, Tim Hardaway at 29 points that first time. Again, Porzingis, the early part of the season, was not good. I mean, we know he was shaking off some rust. Now, this isn't the same KP anymore. He scored 13 points that night, so not a great game from KP, but that was the first time they ever played. Mavs lost 110-106. If I'm remembering correctly, I believe that was the game where Dallas actually fought their way back, and then Luka was trying to shoot a floater and got hit on the elbow, and there was no foul called at the end of the game, which was just ridiculous. But, it is what it is. The NBA is what the NBA is. So next time the Mavs and Kings matched up was January 15th. Mavs got the dub that time, a 4-point win, 127-123. That time, Luka again, 25, 17, and 15. Just absolutely redonkulous numbers from Luka Doncic. But Kristaps Porzingis did not play that night. Neither did JJ Barea or Boban or Courtney Lee, per usual. So the starting five that second time that we played Sacramento was Dorian Finney-Smith, Dwight Powell, rest in peace, Luka Doncic, and Tim Hardaway Jr. and Maxi Kleber. So fun lineup, and they got the dub. You got 21 points from Seth Curry off the bench. And then the Kings, this was kind of Harrison Barnes' revenge game, had 25 points. Buddy Hield had 25 points. De'Aaron Fox had 27 points. So that was the second time they played. So now the Mavs were 1-1. And then they go one more time, and Dallas just absolutely blew them out of the water in February, 130-111, which I think is more telling of what this matchup should actually look like, because this was a fully healthy Dallas team. This was when KP was really starting to hit his stride, and he and Luka looked great together. Luka had 33 points, 8 assists, and 12 boards. Meanwhile, KP, 27 points, 13 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3 blocked shots. So this is really the Maverick team that you're going to see when the Kings and Mavs go up against each other, is a healthy KP, a healthy Luka Doncic. They're playing together, and they're gelling. I think that should be a win. Again, it's going to be a feisty game because Sacramento is going to be playing for a spot in the playoffs for sure. But I don't think Dallas at full health should have any trouble with the Kings. Speaking of health, the only news that I really have about the Kings during this break is that 3 players for them have tested positive for COVID-19. So not great in Sacramento is Alex Len, Buddy Hield, and Jabari Parker. 2 of those 3 players I kind of forgot were even on the Sacramento Kings, in Alex Len and Jabari Parker. But Buddy Hield, of course, great player. One guy that I've always wanted the Mavs to try and get. Who knows if that's ever going to even be possible. But look, I'm not worried about the Kings, but I do think it's going to be a fun matchup because, again, they're going to be playing for something. They're going to be fighting for an 8 seed, and the Mavs are going to be fighting to be out of the 2 seed, basically, because they don't want to play the Los Angeles Clippers. Or fighting to get out of the 7 seed, so they don't have to play the Los Angeles Clippers, who have the 2 seed, and that will actually be who the Mavs play next, August 6th. 5:30 p.m. So you're just getting off work, you're rushing home, you're going to see the Mavs and Clippers play. Mavs are 0-2 against the Los Angeles Clippers this year. I mean, it's not a good matchup. It just isn't. I mean, Dallas doesn't have the wings to defend a Paul George and a Kawhi Leonard. You've got Dorian Finney-Smith and Tim Hardaway Jr. would probably match up against those 2. And I'm sorry, but I don't want Tim Hardaway Jr. on Paul George. THJ, good defender. Not great. There's a big difference. Dorian Finney-Smith, great defender. Now, the first time they played was that Thanksgiving-ish matchup. So everyone's coming back to Dallas. All the students are home from college. They're like, oh, we want to go see the Mavs play. And they get whooped by 15 points, 114-99. Mavs did fight back. I remember they were getting blown out early and kind of fought back, but it wasn't pretty. The duo of Kawhi and PG both played less than 30 minutes, but Kawhi had 28 points, PG had 26 points. Lou Will came off the bench, gave him trouble, 21 points, 6 assists, 6 boards. Mavs, on the other hand, Luka goes 22 points, 4 of 14 shooting, not a great night for him. KP, the double-double looks nice at 15 points and 10 rebounds, but also not a good night of shooting, of 4 of 13 from him, and 3 of his 4 shots were all three-pointers. So, yeah, not a great matchup for Dallas in that first one, and then they go again, and the Mavs lose again and go 0-2, but this one was closer. I mean, the Clippers beat us 110-107, but Dallas actually held their own pretty well. Now, Kawhi went absolutely bonkers in that game, 36 points and 11 rebounds, 3 steals and 2 blocks as well, so giving him trouble on the defensive end. But Luka played out of his mind, 36 points, 10 rebounds, and 9 assists. KP, though, I mean, just not good. The thing with KP is he's going against these players on the Clippers in, Montrezl Harrell. Not a great defender, but he's aggressive. Maybe Kawhi Leonard guards him. Maybe Paul George guards him. Undersized, but good defenders. Maybe it used to be Marcus Morris, obviously. He's now with... No, he's with the other LA team, the Lakers. But even as Zubats gives him trouble down low because he's, so big. But not a good game for KP. 10 points, 9 rebounds. So when the Mavs and Clippers go up against each other in the bubble for the first time on August 6th, it's going to be a big test game because, of course, we all know that's who the Mavs are going to be playing in the first round as of right now. Now, if the Mavs sit at 7, the Clippers sit at 2, that's who they're going up against. But hopefully, after these games, Mavs can move up a couple spots and can avoid them altogether. But there's just no guarantee. So you got to win this game. This is going to be a big test. It's one of the few games on this schedule where I don't feel good at all about, but I am excited to see how the Mavs go up against them. Now, the other game I don't feel good about at all is the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, the Mavs have beat them have beat them before, and the one time they played and got the win, Mavs won 120 to 116 without a Luka Doncic because Porzingis played out of his mind that night. He was plus 20 in the plus minus, 26 points, 12 rebounds, blocked 2 shots. He had 4 assists. He shot 4 of 8 from 3, was doing it inside and out. I remember he had a putback over Giannis, and that was just such a fun game. Seth Curry came off the bench, gave him 26 points, and that team just gelled. I mean, they looked great. The only player who really put up big numbers for the Bucks was, of course, Giannis Antetokounmpo. So the Mavs said, hey, we're going to let Giannis do his thing, and we're going to guard everybody else. And that's basically our game plan. So they gave Giannis 48 points and 14 boards. Meanwhile, the rest of their starting 5 points from Dante DiVincenzo, 9 points from Chris Middleton, 6 points from former Maverick Wesley Matthews, 3 points from Brook Lopez, which was huge. And then Kyle Korver came off the bench, 17 points. But look, Dallas and Milwaukee is going to be a fun matchup when fully healthy. I'm excited to see what Luka can do when they're on the same court. Now, here's the one thing, also, my one note that I have about the Bucks, they are good at basketball because they're 6.5 games ahead of the Toronto Raptors for the number 1 seed in the East. So, mathematically speaking, if the Bucks are sitting there August 8th and they like where they're at, nobody's going to catch them, maybe they're just like, hey, let's just rest Giannis, let's rest our starters and give them some time off. And maybe, just maybe, the Mavs have an even better shot. Now, again, I want to play all these teams at full strength. I want to play them at their highest ability so that we get ready for the playoffs. But if we have a chance to get a W over the Bucks because they're resting players, again, I'm not going to complain. So that's going to be an interesting thing to watch. As of right now, I'm going to assume they're going to play at full health, and it's going to be a tough matchup. But I like that. I like that we've got the Bucks on there, and they're the only Eastern Conference team we're playing, which is interesting. Some of these Western Conference teams are getting to play the Wizards and the crappy teams like the Magic, and we get stuck with the number 1 team in the East, of course, in the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, after that, a couple days off again before they go back-to-back against the Utah Jazz and Portland Trailblazers. Utah, I'm not going to run through all these games because they're, it's just a very different-looking team right now. I put the box scores in here. I have them pulled up. I guess I'll read them to you. The first game, Mavs lose 107 to 112, and the next game, Utah again wins 123 to 119. So Utah's a good team. They definitely are, but here's the thing. Both of those games, they had Bojan Bogdanovic, who's putting up 20 points per game this year and has been one of the absolute best three-point shooters in the league, shooting 41.4% from 3. And yeah, I know you're probably like, he probably doesn't take that many. He's, probably just shooting a few. No, he's shooting 7 per game, which is a career high for him. So Bojan Bogdanovic is special. And unfortunately for the Jazz, but fortunately for the Mavs, Bojan Bogdanovic has a wrist injury. Ruptured his wrist, ruptured a ligament in his wrist, I guess, and he's declared out for the season. Now, Joe Ingles will step in, who, of course, is a great player, great defensively, going to give the Mavs trouble for sure. But it's a huge loss. Another thing that'll be interesting to watch with the Jazz is, I hate to say it, but they were at the forefront of all this. All this suspension, it was Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert were the first names that really came out as guys that had the virus. And I'm not blaming them for the shutdown, don't get me wrong, but they were at the forefront of all this, and their team chemistry was a little bit shaken up during that time. So I'm definitely interested to see how that team bounces back, but no Bojan Bogdanovic. I think this will be a fun matchup for the Mavs. Watch for KP and Rudy Gobert. Not going to be easy for KP, but he's going to have to stretch Gobert out beyond the perimeter. That could be a night where we see Maxey in the starting five potentially with KP, or maybe Dorian stays in because of Joe Ingles. We'll have to see how that plays out. But Utah's fighting for something too. They're not completely settled into their seeding. Right now, Utah sits at 4. They're only 1 game ahead of the Thunder, and they're only 2.5 games ahead of the Mavs. So that could be a spot, and they're number 4 in the West, So there's a chance the Mavs catch them during this bubble. I mean, 2.5 games is nothing when you're playing 8 games and you're playing against all the same teams. So definitely watch out for that one. And the reason this matchup is fun is because right after that, the next afternoon, so Mavs will play that game at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They'll get the break at night. And then 4 o'clock in the afternoon, August 11th, back-to-back, they're going against the Portland Trailblazers. Now, Portland has not been good this year at all, but they've had a lot of injuries. Yusuf Nurkic, of course, is out. Zach Collins has had his fair share of injuries. Now Trevor Ariza has decided he's going to sit out, and he'd probably be the guy to guard Luka Doncic throughout the night if those two teams were to play. But I believe the Mavs are, I'm checking right now, they're 2-1 against the Portland Trailblazers this year, and they've handled them. Both the games they won, it looked pretty decisive. I like Damian Lillard and I like CJ McCollum, but I don't think that's a long-term answer for that team. I'm not 100% sure how they're going to work defensively for the long haul. I put a video up on my channel on All Things Mavs about a potential CJ McCollum trade, which was actually brought up by Sports Illustrated, by the way. If you hear barking, that's my dog in the background. Sorry about that. But a potential CJ McCollum trade, so go check that video out. I break that down. I'd love CJ McCollum on the Mavs, but CJ and Dame, defensively, they get torched a lot. And I think the Mavs are going to really benefit from that with Luka and Tim Hardaway Jr., who are both bigger than CJ and Dame in this matchup. So again, August 11th, so this is the second to last game before we go into the playoffs. Portland could be completely mathematically eliminated at this point in the season. So they could be a team much like the Phoenix Suns and on the opposite end, the Milwaukee Bucks, who are going to be like, hey, we're going to sit some players out. Maybe Dame's like, I don't even want to play. I'm not playing for anything. So when you get Phoenix and you get Portland in your last 2 games, those are 2 games against teams that might be playing for absolutely nothing. And if that's the case, Mavs might have 2 guaranteed wins there at the end. Now, I don't want to guarantee anything at all, but I'm pretty happy with this schedule. You get a tough first matchup in the Houston Rockets. Then easier against the Suns, easier against the Kings. You get 2 potentially tough matchups in the Clippers and the Bucks, but the Bucks could be resting players, so maybe not so tough. And then you get another good matchup in the Jazz, so you're kind of still preparing for the playoffs. But then you go Portland and Phoenix. So Dallas has a really good chance here to make a jump in the standings. Now, we're playing right now, we're in the 7th seed. Again, let me bring this up. But we're only a game and a half out of 6 and 5 because Houston and OKC are technically tied. We're 2.5 games out of 4. It's not crazy to see us jump up into 4 and play whoever the 5 is. Now, the Thunder have a pretty good match or a pretty good schedule coming up for them in Orlando, but I don't think they'll fall below 5. But I think the Mavs have a really good chance to catch Houston and a really good chance to catch Utah. And if that's the case, the schedule could really, really determine a lot. So again, I'm not going to try to make any crazy predictions, but Mavs are playing how many games? You get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're playing 8 games. The Mavs cannot afford to go less than 5-3 in these 8 games. But I really think let's just assume everyone is healthy. Let's assume every team is playing fully healthy. They're not resting anyone. If that's the case, I say Dallas goes 6-2. That's my prediction on the record. Let me know what your prediction is on the record down below. I'm going 6-2 with I'm going to mark it right now. A win over the Houston Rockets. A win over the Phoenix Suns. Starting off with 3 straight wins over the Sacramento Kings. I think assuming everyone's playing for the Clippers, I'll give us a loss there. Assuming everyone's playing for the Bucks, I'm going to give us a loss there. I think it's only fair that you get 2 back-to-back losses, but the Mavs are the only team in the NBA who haven't lost 3 straight games this year. There's a little fun fact for you. So that means W over Utah, W over the Portland Trailblazers, and to end it out, a W over the Phoenix Suns. So I'm going 6-2. That is my record prediction. Let me know what your prediction is in the comment section or in the reviews of this podcast. And guys, I appreciate y'all listening, and I appreciate you guys interacting. This has been a real joy for me to be able to do this podcast and do videos on the All Things Mavs channel for you guys because I love interacting with all of y'all. So if you haven't already, go ahead and go to youtube.com/allthingsmavs and hit that subscribe button. Watch all my latest videos. I've got a video on Davis Bertans. My last podcast is up. A video on Justin Anderson, Courtney Lee, Theo Maledon, all kinds of draft stuff. You can go way back and check out some of my highlight videos from last year. If you're listening on the podcast, go ahead and subscribe, rate it, review. And I'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in to the All Things Mavs podcast.